say, when this headline came through via email, I was a little bit taken back. I thought, does this man know something that we don't? Because the headline read, "Imagine 4 decades without women." Was there going to be an apocalypse of women? I mean, it really threw me a bit. Then I did read down, and the author of the headline joins me. Steve Chandler, property development expert and award-winning property development trainer. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Jenny. How are you?
Good. You frightened me just for a little second, split second.
Oh, it's all about the headline.
Yes, I know that. To catch someone's attention. Well, you did know that, what the heck are they getting? I knew it wasn't something horrible. But anyway, it's really interesting, the topic that you've actually come up with. Just explain to us all what has taken 4 decades.
It's taken 4 decades to actually get a reasonable representation of women in the construction industry.
Oh, wow. Gosh, I get that. I understand why, yeah.
Yeah, like 40 years ago, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends which way you look at it, I started the industry just over 40 years ago. Started out by swinging a hammer, doing my carpentry apprenticeship. Mm-hmm. And back in those days, to see a woman on a construction site, it was exceptionally rare. If a woman walked onto the site, you'd stop and you'd stare, and that's what you do. You just go, what's she doing here?
Exactly.
Now it's like, well, they're everywhere, and it's truly, phenomenal. It's amazing.
Well, 4 decades ago, life was completely different. Women were staying at home a lot more, and of course, we were rather delicate, I think, was the impression that everyone had, particularly men, and that to be swinging a hammer was something that you couldn't even imagine. When did it start to trickle in the fact that women were as capable as blokes? And also, when did it start? But also, what did they start doing first off? Was it the heavy stuff or the light stuff?
I think everyone would recognise that there are a lot of women holding lollipops to control traffic. and that sort of seems to be the place where everyone I talk to says, oh, yeah, there's more women, people outside the industry. Oh, yeah, I see them controlling traffic. And I can tell you that is, scary stuff when you're dealing with, these really busy roads. And it's something that, even though I have come through the industry, it's something that I used to hate when I was younger, is, standing out there and telling these trucks and everyone to stop, all that sort of stuff. So that's sort of, people started seeing that maybe 10 years ago, but it started a long time before that. There's been, women have been sort of coming into the industry in engineering roles, and probably in the last 10 to 15 years, a lot more in the construction management side. There's been a real change in the degrees that are available through universities, that building degrees were something when I started were very rare. And now they instead of calling them building degrees, they're construction management degrees. But there's a lot more of these degrees on offer, and there is a huge number of women coming through and doing these construction management degrees and going into the industry. And one of my baby girls is one of them.
Oh, great. She had no choice with you as a dad. Encouraging.
My first baby girl became an accountant. The second one, which is this baby, she's tiny in stature. She's this tiny little thing, and yet, here she is. She's working on a $200 million hospital project, and she's the new kid on the block. But she's just fitted straight into the administration role. She's learning about all the different aspects of the industry, and in her office, there are women everywhere.
Yeah.
There's site engineers, there's project engineers, even the CEO of a building company is a woman.
Is it welcomed by blokes now? Is it accepted? I mean, things are broken down, barriers are broken down these days naturally, and everyone's fought for it for years. Was it difficult for blokes to accept that in the early stages, do you think?
I can remember back in 1991, a young lady came on the site, with her builder's gear on, and she was doing some waterproofing application. And everyone was going, well, what's she doing here? She shouldn't be working here. That was 1991, and men were like, geez, it'd be great if we had more of them around. But it's sort of, it's difficult because a lot of the guys who work in the building industry, are not necessarily exceptionally well educated.
Yeah.
They're people who've done trades or not even done trades. They haven't gone on for tertiary education.
Yeah.
So they're not as well educated. Some of them are pretty rough, but a lot of them are perfectly fine. They just have chosen not to, do that tertiary education.
We need them.
Quite respectful. Yeah, look, we do. We need them all.
What?
But it has been, interesting to watch the acceptance of women in the industry. It has taken a long time for them to come in. Still not enough female trades out there. The tradies, there's not enough female tradies. Plenty of engineers and, people doing construction management, but certainly on the coalface of the trades, we definitely still need a lot more women.
For the girls that go onto the tools, of which you just mentioned there aren't enough of them at the moment, but hopefully it will increase, have there been allowances made on site? Have there had to be allowances made, like restrooms and that sort of thing for girls, or is it a shared situation?
Well, I think we've all seen the dreaded portaloos.
Yes, poor things.
Those chemical toilets on building sites, and they're not the most pleasant things in the world, particularly during summer. So I think they've always been there. It's a matter of, I think, the guys. My view is the guys are sort of looking after those facilities a lot more than what they would normally do.
That's good.
Or what they did in the past anyway. So there is a recognition of that. There's certainly more facilities for women now, which is great. Obviously, if you're going to have women on the construction site, you have to provide for them. So,
Steve, what about the workers taking instruction from a female if she's in charge of areas? Are they accepting of that?
Well, shall I give you an example? The words that came out of my daughter's mouth. She said, the younger guys, they'll take instruction. The older gentlemen tend to have an issue.
Oh, yeah. Old school thinking. That's what it's about.
Precisely, yeah. It's what you've grown up with, and it's very hard to change a way of thinking. It's a generational problem. But look, they're coming around. I'm older generation. I was one of those guys, 30 years ago. But I've come around, so they can do it too.
They will too. But Steve, the difference today is that equipment is different than it was when it was very laborious. You're swinging hammers and that sort of thing. And I'm sure you can tell us that equipment makes life a little bit easier on the job.
Oh, definitely. Look, you've got all sorts of power tools now that when I started certainly weren't around. Lifting apparatus. There's a lot more, a lot more prefabrication, a lot more craneage. So there's a lot more of those type of things that are available. Look, one thing that is really good. It's a lot safer now than it ever used to be. And when you can't, there is a defined difference physically between men and women, and that's recognised. And it's just a matter of, it's up to, if men are working side by side with women, if a man is physically, more capable of lifting something than the woman is, surely it's okay for a guy to actually say, let me do that.
Be a team.
Hopefully we're doing that, then sure, let's do that. But I think that, you're right, Jen, there's a lot more automation of the process now than there ever was. So, it makes it easier.
What about women young women signing up for these courses at universities? Have you noticed or have you found out if there has been an increase of interest?
Yeah, definitely a substantial interest. I know that when my daughter, who's doing her construction management degree, so she's in third year of her degree, she said at school when they had the career days, she went to an all-girls school, they never had construction management or building as part of the, potential career paths.
Yeah.
But now, even 3 years out of that school, they have it now.
That's really good to see, isn't it?
It's being promoted into the schools as a career for women. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sure you're very proud of that fact. Steve, what are you working on at the moment? Anything in particular?
I have a small-scale building company that's looking at doing what we call low-rise, medium-density housing, which is 4 apartments, 2 downstairs, 2 upstairs, and it still looks like a house. So it just looks like a 2-storey house.
Yeah.
That type of thing, plus duplexes. I'm Sydney-based.
Yep.
Over here, there's a massive, massive push for duplexes, side-by-side, dual occupancy.
Gosh, that goes back to the 70s.
It does, but it's really, it's happening a lot over here at the moment. The apartment market has gone all quiet because of COVID. But housing market, I don't know if you've read about what's happening in our housing market, similar to yours.
Yep.
It's going great guns.
It's interesting over here, Steve. We're seeing a lot more apartment blocks going up, but they're not in particular areas of the older suburbs of Perth. They're certainly not welcoming a high rise. So you've got 4-storey apartment blocks next door to each other, and the lifestyle offer to West Australians is a really appealing one.
Yeah, I think I have some very specific views around urban sprawl. I don't like urban sprawl. It destroys, not only the environment, but if, 100 years ago or 150 years ago, our forebears destroyed the bushland because it was good agricultural land. If we're pushing into that good agricultural land, where are we going to grow produce now?
It's so true. And you know what I think? The newer suburbs are probably a lot of the time for first-home buyers. But the situation is, if you go through your life, you can get a little bit isolated if you're stuck out there. It may not be the case for everybody, but it can be, don't you think? Because all that infrastructure has to come in for the new suburbs and so on.
It adds travel time.
Yep.
It just means you've got to lug yourself, an hour in and an hour out if you work in the city. I mean, COVID's been wonderful for us in that it's, if you understand what I'm saying, it's been wonderful for us to know that we can actually work from home.
Yeah, I agree.
But not if you're a builder.
Good point.
Builders can't work at home. If you're going to build a house, you're not going to, I'll build it on my computer. Well, you do build it on your computer, but then you've actually got to physically go and put it together. So for those people who can't work from home, the further we push out in our suburbs, in our cities, it's just, we're creating an environmental problem. If your mindset is about sustainability and being green and climate change, then you can't support this urban sprawl.
No,
it makes no sense.
I think you're right there, and I think inner city, not inner city entirely, but what you're suggesting is great. Look, another quick thing I'll ask you about while you're with us. We just had some devastating fires here a month or so ago. Absolutely horrific. Like you guys, everyone experiences it in Australia. When summer starts, it always is a dread for me knowing it's going to happen somewhere. What about fire retardant materials on the exterior of homes, just to sort of calm things? Is there any chance of that?
Yes, there is. There's what we call intumescent paint. Intumescent paint is obviously a paint that you paint onto products, and as it gets heated, it expands and it protects the underlying material. So it's quite commonly used on structural steel as a fire protection, for the steel. One of the issues with that product, though, is it's very, very expensive. It doesn't look particularly good when it's coated on. It's very thick and gooey unless you sort of do a textured finish on it.
Yeah.
But it comes down to cost, Jenny. One of the biggest problems we have with everything that we do is cost. Building in bushfire areas, the cost of construction is huge. And I know after the fires in northeast Victoria and in southeastern New South Wales, last year or 12 or 14 months ago, a lot of talk has happened about people being able to rebuild and insurance claims and removal of asbestos from all the old buildings. It's just the disaster that comes out of a fire. We all go, oh yeah, that's dreadful. We can, give some money to try and help the people, but that problem goes on for years later, of course, as people try to rebuild. It's scary.
The cost of the fact that the fires have gone through is multi-billions of dollars every year. And I just wish they'd come up with a building material. The paint sounds great, but it doesn't look good and it's expensive. But the material of the home, I just wish they could come up with something for that.
Well, really, the most effective product is concrete. Reinforced concrete is fantastic in a fire. Your windows have to be obviously you would have to be heat retardant.
Yeah.
So there is particular types of glass that are heat retardant. You can't use aluminium window frames. You've got to use steel, which are going to be better against the heat of the flame. You have fire-rated roller shutters that drop down to protect the glass as well. It's just there's so many things you can do.
I reckon we should be doing it.
One of these, well, they cost money.
I know that, but it costs money when they lose their home and they lose their jobs and they have nowhere to live. I know I'm being very simplistic about it, but it's just horrible to see this happening. We watch the news and we don't have much to do with it after that, after we've tried to help along the way. And these people are still trying to find places to live and get back to normal. It's horrible.
And afterwards, after they find somewhere temporarily, what generally happens is they rebuild a similar home to what they had.
That's what I mean.
Because the insurance, let's say you had a $200,000 insurance payout, you're going to build a $200,000 home. And that $200,000 home, you want to get the most home out of that $200,000 as you can. You're not going to build a home half the size that's,
No, of course, I understand. It's always about the money, I get that, but your safety and your welfare, and if you choose to live in these beautiful areas, come summertime, I just wouldn't be able to sleep at night. I'd be so concerned that something was going to happen.
It's absolutely stunning, and your previous caller was talking about places to visit in Western Australia. It's absolutely stunning. Our country is a beautiful country, and getting out and living in different parts of it is fantastic. But there are life-threatening issues that can happen in a country like ours.
Exactly.
So if you're going to build in those areas, isn't the question mark not about the people who built these homes? That's their problem. It shouldn't be that. Why were they ever allowed to build them in the first place if it's potentially deadly?
Exactly right. You work on it, Steve. Work on a product that can bring the price down, and it'll be fantastic.
Indeed. I will try my best.
Thank you for your information, Steve. Nice to speak to you. Steve Chandler, property development expert, joining